Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us here today. My name is Carrie Burke, and I am with the Associated General Contractors of North Dakota. Technology, if you don't already know this, technology is a wonderful thing. In preparation for this afternoon, I asked Google what a DOT project designer, a contractor, a DOT snowplow driver, and a truck driver have in common, and it turns out it's roundabouts. So please help me welcome to the stage our guest speakers. I'm just going to hit the highlights of their bios, so if you want to read all about them, you can do it on the website or scan the QR code on the front of the brochure. So starting at the far right, I hope I get everybody in order here. We have Alan Haught. He is the section supervisor with the North Dakota DOT Williston District. Alan has been with the DOT for 4 years and serves as a supervisor for Watford City's maintenance section. He has experience plowing snow from roundabouts through the last 3 winters. Next, we have Brady Haussler, NDDOT Support Center section leader, NDDOT Design Division. Brady provides training and guidance to design staff at the DOT Support Center on the application of highway design engineering principles to DOT projects. In 2023, his teams designed the state's second retrofit roundabout near the Standing Rock Reservation on North Dakota 24 and the first reduced conflict intersections on US 2 near Williston. Next, we have Mike Gowan. Mike is a third-generation owner of Gowan Construction. Mike grew up in Candu, North Dakota, and played football while studying civil engineering at the University of North Dakota. He and his family's construction operation specializes in interstate, airport, and heavy highway reconstruction, and Mike is currently serving as the AGC of North Dakota president. And then we have Chad Sorensen. He's the owner of Chad Sorensen, Inc., and fleet manager with Kyllo Trucking. Chad is currently a business owner and fleet manager in Larimore, North Dakota. He has spent more than 24 years behind the wheel, navigating across the lower 48 states and Canada, accumulating more than 3 million miles before retiring from truck driving. And finally, our moderator for today is Justin Schlosser, traffic operations engineer. As a traffic operations engineer, Justin prepares and analyzes traffic and infrastructure safety studies. So, thank you for joining us. Enjoy.
Thank you, Carrie. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone's having a great conference so far. We'll get started here. First, I'm going to take a few minutes and go through just a few slides just to briefly introduce you to roundabouts and some things we've been doing for roundabouts. And then we'll go on with the panel discussion and get these experts' opinions on how they handle roundabouts.
Like smoke detectors in your home and seatbelts in your car, traffic safety solutions like roundabouts can improve and save lives on our roadways. Roundabouts are circular intersections where drivers travel counterclockwise around a center island. To begin, you must yield to traffic in order to enter. After entering, keep your eye out for your exit. To exit, use your turn signal and turn onto your desired street. Using roundabouts provides many benefits. In addition to improving your quality of life, they help enhance the flow of traffic, reduce delay, and reduce crash fatalities and serious injuries by 82%. We can all help keep our roads safer. Be part of the solution. Find out how at visionzero.nd.gov.
Okay, so that was just a brief intro video just to get you a little background knowledge on roundabouts. This video was created by the DOT and an outside consultant to give the public a perspective of roundabouts. So we teamed up with them, created this video. It got sent out and is now on the DOT YouTube channel. So it gives a little bit perspective to the general public on roundabouts because we still get some pushback on roundabouts when we introduce them to the public. Next slide is going to be some drone footage that our DOT actually got of the latest roundabout that we constructed of the roundabout at Beulah. So this next slide. It has no sound, it's just drone footage video of a roundabout at Beulah. Okay. And then roundabouts. The map on your right is a map. The red dots show all the existing roundabouts that we have in our state, or on the state system, that is. There's about 13 roundabouts. And all the yellow dots are all of the planned roundabouts that we have in the next 4 years about. So roundabouts are increasing in our state, and that's for a good reason. It's probably my favorite infrastructure safety solution. They not only improve traffic operations at intersections, but they also improve safety. So when we go to the public, we have gotten pushback that you're just increasing the number of crashes at every intersection that you install a roundabout. And we didn't know if that was true or not, right? We knew that the severe crashes and fatal crashes were reducing, and that's what national data shows, is that those type of crashes are reduced to minimal or zero, right? But we wanted to analyze our own crash data. So we looked at our 13 roundabouts that we have on our state system, and we did before and after crash data analysis. And what we showed is the first bullet, sub-bullet, is 36% reduction, the first bullet is 36% reduction in total crashes per year. So the public, when they say that you're increasing crashes at places that you put roundabouts, that is totally false. We have the data to prove that and show that now. You're reducing all crashes by 36%. And the great number that we can show is almost 60% reduction in fatal and serious injury crashes per year at places that we're installing roundabouts. So that is a great statistic that's getting us closer to Vision Zero. Okay, so with that, that's a little bit of background on roundabouts, and next we'll go to our expert roundabout panel and go through some questions with them and get their perspective on their occupation or their industry and how they deal with roundabouts. So first question is for you, Brady. A concern that comes up more often than not is the ability to accommodate specific vehicles that will use the roundabout. Can we and should we?
Can we? Yes. Should we? Absolutely. And there's plenty of ways to do that. You know, like you heard earlier in the opening remarks today when we were talking, or when Ron was talking about considering all users, that's obviously key with any type of improvement. And so with roundabouts, you know, the accommodations that we can make are for pedestrians, for large vehicles, you know, and there's many different types of accommodations that we can make. So we can and we should. You know, in terms of what a roundabout is and how it works, we're considering from the perspective of like unique or longer vehicles, right? So from an operations perspective, there's ways that we can accommodate that. From a geometrics and safety perspective, there's ways that we can accommodate those types of vehicles. You know, I think it's important to have early coordination, talk to the district, talk to the communities, and that, you know, in early stages of project development to kind of figure out what your priorities are, and so that you know what you're designing for specifically, and keep that as an open line of channel communication throughout the project development. So I mentioned operationally, we can look at things like single lane versus a dual lane roundabout And when that suits a certain purpose, we can accommodate vehicles that way from an operations and a traffic volume perspective. Geometrically, there's physical design components like the truck apron, mountable curbs, vertical curbs, truck blisters, or external truck aprons. There's the mountable within the mountable central truck apron, there's a raised island feature, but that doesn't have to be raised, so there's a lot of different ways that we can accommodate vehicles with constructed features, geometrics, and with the advantage of safety too. And then during construction, there's phasing is super important. How do we get people traveling through a roundabout safely and efficiently during construction? And sometimes that's a little bit more of a challenge, but we've learned some lessons over the years, and it's coordination there is critical. And sometimes if we have to get a longer vehicle or a unique vehicle through an intersection during construction where a roundabout is being built, then we can drive them the wrong way through there in a temporary fashion so that we can get vehicles where they need to go, whether they're just passing through or whether they're a construction vehicle. Yeah, so the answer is yes. We definitely can and we definitely should.
Great. Thank you, Brady. Next question is for Chad. Chad, why do you like roundabouts as a truck driver?
It's a little easier. You keep the momentum. You don't have to stop and then start back out. You can just keep everything rolling. You just roll around the circle and go the way you want to go. It's easier on equipment, easier on fuel. It saves you a little time at the end of the day. And they just seem to work a little better in certain areas.
Okay, thanks, Chad. Ellen, first question, on the maintenance side, how is maintenance for roundabouts during winter operations, and what equipment do you use for your winter operations?
We don't use a lot of different equipment than normal roads. The main thing that we have to fight is snow drifting, and whenever that happens, especially if you get 2 or 3 storms in a row, with our roundabouts that we have to deal with, there's a 6-inch curb there, so you're unable to get the truck up there to clear it off, so you will have to get some form of a blower down there or even a front end loader to be able to move that snow, so that just because of high winds, it doesn't keep continuously drifting in and then closing the roads. And then I don't know if this is for all roundabouts, but ours in particular are concrete, which concrete tends to freeze a little bit faster and ice over faster. And with people having to reduce their speeds to go into a roundabout, if not come to a complete stop, they're a very high priority for us, and they take quite a bit more material to ensure that traffic's able to stop and let other people go by, and it's so you obviously have 4 exits, or typically anyways, 4 exits and 4 entryways. So if you only got one guy there, it typically takes 20-25 minutes to completely clear that one little area and able to move on to a next. So it is definitely more of a maintenance just for one little section, but I do believe that it is better for traffic flow versus having 1 or 2 stop signs or 4 stop signs even. At least most of the traffic doesn't have to come to a complete stop, which is where you see most of your accidents.
Okay, great. I don't remember if it was in your bio or not, Ellen, but can you remind the crowd what roundabouts you maintain?
The ones that I specifically see, there's 3 that I do go to sometimes, but 2 of them often. At the intersection of Highway 23 and 73, there at, we call it Johnson's Corner, just west of Watford City. And then just north of there, there's the 23 intersection. I'm not sure exactly what that county road is there as well, but it's in Keene, North Dakota. That's the 2 that I see. And then there also, we do go over to the Fairfield roundabout, some, but not a whole lot. My particular section doesn't.
Thank you. Mike, question for you. What traffic control is used during construction of a roundabout?
Yeah, first of all, traffic control isn't really the hottest topic. Nobody really wants to talk about traffic control. It's not going to get anybody really excited. But I have to say that it is the most important by far. Kind of what Brady had brought up, the phasing of the projects is absolutely the utmost important. As contractors, you see sometimes the DOT and different people, they put out a great plan. Not all the times the contractors follow that plan. The best thing to do is to get, in my experience, we like to see portable devices. Example to that would be stackable vertical panels versus post-mounted. Primarily because the sleekness of the design, we use the stackable portable panels so we can move them around. There's anywhere from 2 to 7 phases in some of these projects, and I mean, it gets to be a lot. And if you're moving those things around and you have post mounts, it's a lot easier to pick the stackables up and kind of move them around where you need to. And they also accommodate for combine headers. A lot of the combine headers we see floating around, some of those guys are supposed to be putting them behind their combines and putting them out, but you have a 40-foot drape header on some of those combines, and some of them are 50 feet now. I mean, a lot of them, any of those post mounts that come through, they do knock them over, keel them over, and it's a son of a gun to try to get them back up. During the construction, traffic is typically rotated counterclockwise, as we've seen in the video. Some of the instances when you get some of these bigger loads, they come in, we will actually reroute traffic and run them clockwise. And along with some of the phasing, we will run traffic in the opposite direction. So this causes significant amount of confusion. I'm not talking about opening your sister's birthday present confusion. I'm talking about like pandemonium. Some of this head-to-head traffic gets to be pretty crazy, and with mitigating that, we like to use pilot cars, a lot of pilot cars and flaggers at each of the 4 intersections, and that's the most safe and reliable. The portable traffic signals, they work great. We have nothing bad to say about them at all, but the fact is that having actual people on the ground with communication and allowing them to communicate with the pilot cars for when these big loads do come through wind tower blades. I've seen combines, and I mean, it gets to be pretty hectic, but with that, I would have to say the portable devices.
Great. Brady, back to you. In recent years, roundabout construction has become more common on the state system. What lessons have we learned, and have we made changes to our design philosophy from those roundabouts?
So, there's a lot of different geometric features that I mentioned when I was answering my first question. And, so if you focus on those features, the diameter of a roundabout, other characteristics like the size, the location, and the alignment of the roundabout, you've got various lane widths, different types of curbs, that central feature. And so based on those items, I think we've learned a lot of things. I don't remember how many roundabouts you said we're up to now, but
13.
15?
13.
Okay.
1-3.
And if you look at like the last 10 years, diameters over time have gotten smaller. I think some of the first ones, or the first one that we did, was meant for a higher design speed, but the radius was something like 200. The diameter, the inscribed diameter was 200 feet. And now if you look at the ones we've done more recently, we're talking about 160 feet. So they've gotten smaller, but different design speeds, different size of roundabout too. So that obviously plays a major role in it. Lane widths have stayed relatively consistent. If you guys are familiar with NCHRP, there's a lot of good guidance out there. I don't know it verbatim, so I can't read it to you right now, but generally if you stay in that 20 to 24 foot range within the circulatory roadway for the width that's there to provide for vehicles to maneuver through there, that's proven effective for us, so we haven't really needed to change that up too significantly. Curbs, you were mentioning curbs when you're talking about maintenance, and that's obviously, I think every project is different. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but obviously the needs are different for every project, so you kind of have to look at that case by case. Sometimes we use vertical curb, 6-inch standard curb and gutter. We use mountable curbs. Sometimes we do some sort of custom curb configuration. I think if you look at any of the constructed features within any of our roundabouts, probably the most variability is within the different types of curbs that we use to accommodate vehicles or operations or maintenance activities. The central area within the roundabout, sometimes it's aggregate, sometimes it's paved, sometimes it's landscaped, sometimes it's flat, sometimes it's mounded, or any combination of those types of things. We've done different things with that over the years, and in certain situations you might lean one way, and in other situations you might lean another way. There's different safety benefits of having a mound in the middle, giving people a little bit more notice that, hey, the traffic pattern at this approaching roundabout is a little bit different than what it used to be. Either the colored concrete or the mound in the middle of the road gives them that indication. But in certain instances too, you got to be careful with sight distance and things like that. So, a flatter central feature might be your best benefit for your particular project. It's kind of case by case. And then I guess another lesson we've learned, rather than reconstructing entire roadways to put in a roundabout, we've been doing retrofit roundabouts, where you take the existing intersections and convert it effectively into a roundabout, and we save a lot of time doing that, actually, construction-wise. Some of the more recent projects that we've had were 45-day working contracts, completed as quickly as 18 days. And who doesn't love a shorter construction season, right? So that's good for the contractor, that's good for the DOT, that's good for the traveling public. So I think there's a lot of things that we've learned. We're still figuring it out as we go. But again, as I said earlier, I think coordination is important. And so if you're roundabouts in a community or in a particular district, just talk to each other.
Okay. Next question, Chad. As a truck driver, do you use the truck apron, and do you feel comfortable using the truck apron?
Well, the ones you have to, you use. But it depends on the design. If they're wide enough, you don't need it. If they're, if you do need it, it's nice to have it there. But the truck apron it's kind of like the shoulder of the road. If any debris or anything gets blown to the shoulder of the road, or it gets blown to the center of the roundabout, so you try and go as wide as you can and stay out of it. But it's a necessary thing to have there. And you want the truck apron instead of like a gravel center or something where you're getting stuck. So it is nice to have it there so you're not climbing a curb or something.
Okay, Ellen, one thing that many people don't realize is that there's still maintenance responsibilities for roundabouts during the spring and summer operations. What do you have to do for maintenance responsibilities on roundabouts during the nicer times of year?
Well, going back to what Brady was saying too, with our style of curbs, they're more of a vertical style of curb, and at least in my opinion, I feel like our roundabouts that I have to deal with directly are a little bit too narrow for the amount of traffic and type of traffic we have, which is a lot of truckers coming in and out of there, and they're constantly hitting their curbs and breaking off the curbs, and we'll have to go in there and to repair them. And it's not just as easy as going in there and repairing concrete, because you're on the side of a very busy intersection there with traffic. Like Mike said, they don't pay attention to construction workers. So if you're going to go out there and doing any kind of a work, we have to set up a temporary work zone, which in my opinion is also not as effective as a more long-term construction zone, because at least with the long-term, you get people that come in there regularly and they know it's a construction site, versus a temporary where that guy who's hauling water or whatever he's hauling, he might have already came through there once or twice that day, then he's coming through there for the third time, then all of a sudden there's a work zone that we've set up in there. And it doesn't matter how many signs you use or anything like that. A lot of the public does pay attention, but they don't pay attention that well. So you'll have to have a group of guys out there just to flag, just to help control the traffic, to make sure it's safe to do any kind of operations out there. And besides just repairing the curbs, we have to clean the roundabouts, because I'm sure anyone that's drove through there, you can see that on all the curbs, there's a solid foot of just compacted dirt that you can't just come in there and sweep up with a sweeper because it's very hard. So you have to get out there and manually shovel it to loosen it off, and so then you got skid steer out there with the broom, usually another piece of equipment to actually pick up the dirt and put it into the back of a truck to get it off the site. And then you got, roughly 10 to 12 people out there working, 4 of them being flaggers just to make sure it's safe. And then some of this isn't even just summertime operations, like even throughout the winter, especially on winters like this, whenever we particularly didn't get a bunch of snowstorms. And our roundabouts are all gravel in the middle of them. So we'll constantly have to go over there and pick up rocks, or, kick them off to the side, or do something just to get them off there. And you have to do that during the winter and summer. And then also during the summer with ours, again, having gravel in there, we constantly have to go in there and either pull out weeds or weed whack them. And then with where ours is located, the one that I deal with directly, it's in a spot where you can spray it with some kind of weed control, but some of the other ones are located, near some kind of crop or some kind of field where you're not really allowed, you're within a certain distance, so you can't spray an effective weed control on it, so you have to go out there by hand and just pick them, which takes a lot of time. They're a lot wider than what you think when you're out there picking weeds.
Okay, Mike, back to you. Can you expand or explain to us the time it takes to construct a roundabout?
Yeah, depending on the fixtures and the amenities that the roundabout requires and what the public desires. In our experience, it varies. It absolutely varies. And as Brady had also mentioned with the curb fixtures and if there's curb and gutter and everything else on these projects. And in the median, if you have, rather than a grass surface, if you have paving stones or anything like that, I mean, that just takes time. From our experience, it's 3 to 5 phases. We end up with 2 days to set up the traffic control if you're looking at a project, and 2 days to set up traffic control, 1 day to strip the site, 3 to 5 days for the earthwork. That's depending if we're dirt balancing or if we're importing material outside borrow. 3 to 5 days of construction, physical construction and aggregate placement, and that's basing off your gravel pits are an average of 30 miles. So I mean, that depends on all over the state, depending on where you are. Paving typically takes 3 to 8 days. 1 day to replace the topsoil and 1 day to temp seed. So with all that I just mentioned, it's roughly 15 days per phase is what we had found with the ones that we had built to do the project. So if you end up with 3 phases in the project, you're looking at 45 days to complete the project. But with that, there's alternative answers to asphalt pavement versus concrete. You're setting up forms and taking forms down. It's not slip form paved. A lot of it is a lot of hand physical labor around these curves. Asphalt will cut that down by about 5 days per phase. We'll go in and pave the whole thing in 2-3 phases and knock it out, which will shave about 15 days off. So it'll actually, looking at anywhere from 27 days to 38 days per roundabout from start to finish. That's including permanent traffic control and permanent seating.
Brady, from your experience, what are the most common concerns that the public has with roundabouts?
There's a lot of people, excuse me, there's a lot of people in this room, so just before I answer, I just want to read the room. How many people have participated in project, in public involvement before who are attending? It's a good number. Obviously, that's a major step and a very important one in project development, and it can go a lot of different ways. So my answers aren't a catch-all for everything that's ever happened, but I think simply there's 3 groups, and there's people who are in favor for them, for roundabouts. There's people who are firmly against roundabouts, and then there's a group in the middle where they're not necessarily for or against it. They're not necessarily against it, but they have some of their own concerns or reservations because maybe it's new to them, or maybe there isn't one locally where they can kind of compare, what's proposed with what they're going to get. And as I'm sure a lot of people who raise their hands know, you don't hear about it unless people don't like what you're doing, right? Not everybody's going to tell you you're doing a good job when there's roundabouts, but there are times where that happens. In the 12 years that I've been working, there have been a few of those where people literally cheered for a roundabout. You see it more common now than I think it's been in the past. If you work in a district or a local government where you're dealing with a community directly, or Justin in programming division, or anybody in programming division, you get more requests nowadays directly from the community for a roundabout. So it's something that they want, which is nice when that's the case. I think if you look at them, from my experience, the four major concerns that communities have are, how do we navigate it? And I think to resolve some of those issues, Justin was talking about some of the informational materials that we prepare and work with for communities, so that if they're worried about how do they get through it, if it's new to them, most people know what roundabouts are by now, but not everybody does. And so, preparing resources like that and just providing information to people so that they're getting correct information and just getting information is important. So, that's how we kind of quell that concern with how do you navigate it. How do larger vehicles make it through there is obviously a concern. A lot of agriculture, a lot of trucking. And so, like I talked about earlier, there's many different ways to accommodate vehicles to maneuver through a roundabout. Could probably sit here and talk all day about just that, like there's many different ways to deal with that. And so, you talk about what the community wants or what their major concerns are, and you narrow it in, and you find a resolution, some common ground, and you move forward, and hopefully everybody's on the same page then. So, how do we navigate it in general? How do we get larger vehicles through there? Will it actually work? I think that's for that large group in the middle where they're not really sure. It's not a yes from me, it's not a no from me, but I've got these concerns. If we have a lot of data, like you said, we're not just pulling statistics out of our hat. We have however many roundabouts on the state system now. In the past, I think there's alternative intersection varieties where we've proposed an idea and people thought, well, that doesn't exist yet. So they were being used as guinea pigs, and people don't necessarily like that. And I can understand that, but at the same time, it's not true, because there's other types of improvements that we just haven't done yet that exist out there, and we're not the first to, and we haven't invented them, So will it work? We have a lot of data to show that it will, and it saves lives, and it changes lives, and there's people that even felt strongly against them to start with, that once they've been implemented, they get to actually try them out once they exist for themselves, and they say, you know what, we were wrong, actually this works really well in the right situation. So I think that's a major concern. Yeah.
Okay, great. Chad, how do you feel as a truck driver roundabouts can be improved?
Well, in the beginning, I was one of them people that was deadly against it. And the more they're around, the more you use them, you realize that it takes less time to go through that than it does to stop at the stop sign. You don't have to stop. You don't have to wear your clutch. You can keep your load moving. It saves you a little bit of time. It's a little easier on fuel. It's easier on your equipment. And as long as they're designed right for the location, I believe they're a great improvement. And I can see the safety improvement in them too.
Okay, and last question back to you, Brady. As time goes on, multimodal transportation and complete streets concepts have become a higher priority, as the director of the DOT mentioned in his opening statements. Any special pedestrian considerations with roundabouts?
There are definitely a handful. I think most of the ones that you showed everybody earlier on the map are probably rural ones, but we do have roundabouts that have pedestrian accommodations like shared use paths or sidewalks, for people who are walking or biking. And I think the major thing is safety. So, the more critical items as a pedestrian, the location of the crosswalks is important. The visibility of most anything and everything that's related to the pedestrian is obviously extremely important. So, we draw attention to where the crossings are supposed to happen intentionally with pavement markings, ample signing, rectangular rapid flashing beacons. We use that, you know, it's literally a flashing light. How do you draw more attention to something than with a flashing light? Well, you can actually add intersection lighting to a roundabout too, so you can light up the whole intersection. And so I think some of those are meant probably as a primary benefit for the people traveling through in vehicles, but they're also doubly beneficial for pedestrians. You know, whether you're on a bicycle or whether you're walking, things like that. So, you know, just picking smart, predictable, and very visible locations for people to cross the road. You know, and like I mentioned, some roundabouts may have raised splitter islands or chicanes, and if you've got sidewalks present, that you know, the chicanes are meant to correct the entry and exit angles of a vehicle so that they're navigating it properly. But the dual benefit there is that, you know, they have a chicane now that pedestrians can take refuge in as they're crossing if they're worried about a wider street or something like that. So there's just a lot of things I think that we kind of have in our toolbox that you can use to remedy those concerns and still get through there safely. Pedestrian or vehicle, I think it's better for many, or if not all, users.
Great, thank you. So in conclusion, roundabouts, a great tool that we can use. Not only does it improve traffic operations, so from my side, traffic operations engineer, there's not too many tools that improve traffic operations and also improve safety. So roundabouts are one of those tools that we can use. We have the data that can show it improves operations, and as I showed previously, we have the data now that shows it absolutely improves safety on our state system whenever we install a roundabout. So with that, thank you for joining us today. Thank you to our panel. Can we give a round of applause for our expert panel on roundabouts? And with that, thanks everyone. Have a great rest of the conference.